Let's take a moment and check out the illumination and dimmer settings on Pioneer's DEH-X3800UI. So let's take a look at the illumination settings first. That's the color settings on the head unit. We'll press in on the volume control, and let's roll along here until we find the illumination settings. There we go. And we'll press enter. And we can change the color here. We can change the color of the key area, or we can change the color of the display area independent of one another, or we can change both colors at the same time. So we can change both colors here by pressing in on the volume control, and we can choose a preset color to work with. We have a number of different presets that we could choose from. Or we can go back and we can choose to adjust the key color or the display color independently. So let's work with the display color. There's also the key color setting. Let's work with the display color for right now. We'll press enter there. And right now it is on the turquoise color. So how about if we press and hold for a couple of seconds until we bring up the RGB values. Here we have our red, green, and blue values. Not much red, a lot of green, and a lot of blue in this one. So right now we're on the red setting. We can turn the volume control to add some more red in, and you can start to see the color change. If we press enter, we go over to the greens and we'll back some of the green color out. And again, you can see that color continuing to change. And we'll go over to our blue and we will back some of that blue color out. Press again, we're back around to the reds, and we can add some more red in. So as that color continues to change, you can choose whatever you'd like. When you find a color that you like, matches your dash, maybe matches your school colors, whatever you like, write those numbers down and you can copy them over to the key area as well. Let's go back, and we are on a custom color right now. So we are going to change to maybe our turquoise color again. There we go, on both colors. And we'll go back and roll over to the next setting, which is our dimmer settings. We're going to come back to the dimmer settings when we talk about all of the dimmer different options. Let's look at our brightness for a moment here. We'll press in there. Right now the brightness is at 10. That's as bright as the radio, the display area will get. If that's too bright for you, you can back that out a little bit or take it back up. For this demonstration, we'll put that back up to 10. And we'll go back and roll over to the next setting, which is Illumination Effects. And right now Illumination Effects is on. We can also switch that off if we want to. We'll leave it on for right now. What Illumination Effects means is when I put a CD in the slot here, we'll see some lights flash on the screen a little bit to know that we put in a CD or ejected a CD. And we'll roll over to the next setting, which is back around to our color setting. Now let's take a look at the dimmer settings that are available to us. So I'm going to exit out for right now. I'm going to press the band button to escape, and that takes us back out to the radio source. Now the fastest way to operate the dimmer is to press and hold the back button here for a couple of seconds. That will switch the dimmer on, and you see the brightness of the radio dramatically drops down to its lowest setting. Now the dimmer is still on, and that's what I want, but maybe that's too dim for me, dimmer than I want it to be. So let's press in on the volume control and go back into our illumination settings. And we're going to roll over to brightness and check out that setting. So when I switched the dimmer on, it dropped my brightness to 1. That's the lowest setting. That's dimmer than I want it to be. Let's turn that up a little bit. Remember, my dimmer is still on right now. Their brightness number 5 seems to be a little more reasonable for me for when my driving around at night. That's where I want that to be. So we'll press the band button to escape, and remember, the dimmer is still on. Now when I press and hold and switch the dimmer off, the radio comes up to its full brightness. When I switch the dimmer on again, the radio switches the dimmer on, drops down to brightness number 5. That works pretty good for me. Now there's a couple of different ways to operate this dimmer. Let's take a look at those. First thing we'll do is switch that dimmer off again. Okay, the dimmer is off. Now let's go back into our illumination settings, and we want to see the dimmer. Here we go, the dimmer settings. First thing we see is sync to illumination. Now this head unit has an illumination wire on the back of it that can be wired up to your car. If it is installed properly, when the headlights are switched on, the dimmer will automatically switch on here on the head unit, and when the headlights are switched off, the head unit will come back up to its full brightness. That's if the illumination wire in the system has been wired into the vehicle. And also, some people like to drive with their headlights on all the time, and that would dim this head unit all the time. Maybe you don't want to do that. So if you don't want that, let's go back in there to our dimmer settings, and we can also synchronize the dimmer with the clock. If we want, we'll press enter here. This start time is 6 p.m. is the way it's set up right now. That means the dimmer turns on at 6. Maybe we'll make that 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m. is when my dimmer turns on. Press enter again, and the dimmer turns off at 6 a.m. Maybe we'll make that 7:30 a.m. So there, I set my, my dimmer to switch on and switch off at the time that I want. And if we want, we can go back and roll over to the next setting, which is the manual setting for the dimmer, which is what we showed you before, just pressing and holding the back button for a couple of seconds to switch the dimmer on and off. Remember, you can exit this menu at any time by pressing the band button here to escape.